Many watch enthusiasts, collectors and hobbyists, they like to tinker, they like to dabble at things. I know from personal experience because I used to in the past and I still do. So today we come to watches. We buy ourselves a watch. It gains too much time during the day or it loses too much time. So we think to ourselves, I got this, I can fix anything. I did engineering when I was a kid, I can fix anything. Stick around and I'll demonstrate what you should and shouldn't do with an expensive automatic chronometer as well as entry-level automatics. If you like my content and you want to see more, please help the channel by subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell. So I'm not here to tell anybody which watch they should and should not open up its case back. If you really want to do this at home, you really want to give it a go and experiment, I've got a rule of thumb. Always choose and experiment with the cheapest watch that you have. One that won't make you lose sleep at night if things go south really fast. Do you want to open up a certified chronometer and adjust it with minimal knowledge and experience? One of your Rolexes, an Omega, a Patek, maybe a Grand Seiko. Guess what? You've just signed the watch's death certificate. Leave that stuff to the professionals. If you have an entry-level watch like this one, for argument's sake, a Timex, a Citizen, a Casio, a Seiko, something that's not keeping accurate time and you really want to do it, it's very simple. Let me explain. You're going to need yourself a time grapher. These are available online. You can get them anywhere. They're around the $150 to $200 mark. They're not that expensive. A time grapher has a microphone attached to it, as you can see. You're going to need yourself a case back opener. This opens up the back of the case. There are many different types available. This is a relatively cheap one. I'm showing equipment that anybody can get, okay, online. You're going to need yourself a toothpick. And the reason I use a toothpick is because it's not a metal item. It's not going to damage anything inside or add any form of magnetism to the watch itself. Speaking of magnetism, you're going to possibly need a demagnetizer. And the reason I say that, the first thing I do whenever I want to regulate a watch's speed, its rate, is I check for magnetization. I shared a video several days ago and very simple. You just use a compass, you run the watch over that compass, and if the compass doesn't fluctuate left or right, the watch is fine. If the compass does move, you're going to have to demagnetize that watch first. Now we're in a neutral stance. Now we can start. Now the first thing that we need to do is remove the watch's case back. And we'll use the tool that we have supplied here. And sometimes the actual case back might be on really stiff, really tight. It's never been opened. So you need what's called here a holder. You can place the watch in the holder itself, tighten it up, and then it gives you a little bit more leverage. I won't be needing to use this because I've actually already opened this watch up before, so I know that it's not that tight. So we basically position the tool in the appropriate slots, loosen her up, as you can see, and remove the case back. Just like that, away you go. Now remember, when you're opening up a watch, you're going to introduce foreign particles and so forth, dust and all the rest. Try to do this in a contained environment. I know that it's not a cheap, it is a cheap watch that you're going to be using, not an expensive watch. So just try to do this in an environment that's going to be at least relatively clean, away from open windows and carpets. So we place the watch in the actual holder just here of the time grapher. There you go. So as you can see, we have the watch on the time grapher here, and the watch is communicating with the actual processor in here. Now I've got it on stop at the moment, so if I was to press start, as you can see, there you go. You can hear tick tock, yeah? It's picking up the signal. I'll put that on mute so you can hear me, but what this is doing at the moment is it's picking up noises from inside this watch and telling me certain criteria. I'll explain them. The rate. The rate is the speed of the watch, how fast or how slow a watch is running per day. At the moment it's fluctuating between 8 seconds, 6 seconds, minus 6 seconds per day. Now you'll see that will fluctuate on a cheaper movement, as well as this being an older watch. It's not it's probably about 7 or 8 years old, and I did regulate this several years ago. Again, it's not an expensive certified chronometer, so it's going to fluctuate quite a bit. The amplitude is telling us basically how much the balance is spinning from one direction to the other. and how much of that 360-degree arc it completes. I'll give you an example. If you can see just in there, that's the actual balance wheel, and that's going left, right, and it has a potential of doing a full 360 degrees before it returns and does it again. Tick tock, like that. Just like this. I'll demonstrate it on this. If this was the balance wheel, it goes this way, this way, this way, this way, and that demonstrates, right, that reading that we're getting here shows us how much of that 360 degrees is actually operating. At the moment, it's at 222 degrees. Neither here nor there. Like I said, it's an older watch. A healthy watch should run anywhere from 200 plus, 250, 300 is really healthy. So the beat error, 0.1 millisecond beat error. What the beat error is how centered the wheel is on this machine, on this particular watch. In other words, does the tick and the tock, do they have the same travel length? Do they, that's showing us how much of a distance of the travel length they have from tick to tock. Anything under 0.5 is ideal. This is 0.1, 0.2, that's not an issue. If this was around the 1.5 millisecond, I would say that we could adjust that. There's the actual adjustment lever just there. We'd adjust that until we brought that into a lower figure, bringing the watch back into beat. The parameters on the side here, as you can see, it's telling us that the watch is ticking away at 21,600 beats per hour. It's picked that up automatically through the microphone. But there's also one other thing. It says 53 degrees in there. That's the lift angle. So let's press stop and press the menu button. The beat rate automatically, so it's automatically picked up 21,600 as you saw before. The lift angle, I've manually put in 53 degrees here. Ideally, when you turn these machines on, they come on at 52, but if you do a search online, you can find the lift angle of different movements. This particular movement is a Seiko 7S26, and the lift angle by spec is 53 degrees. So I've typed that in so it can give us a more accurate reading. The test period, I've got it here at 2 seconds. Ideally it comes on at about 12. I like to go at 2 seconds when I'm initially adjusting a watch because I want to see any fluctuations. That's why we saw the rate and the beat error go up and down, because every 2 seconds it's sampling this. It's giving us a reading. Whereas if I was to change it to 60 seconds, I would have to wait for 60 seconds before I see any fluctuations in whatever adjustments I make, and that's too long. So what I do, I put it down to 2 seconds and it gives me a more instantaneous reading. Okay, and lastly the language. So if I was to now press start, as you can see, there's the watch's reading. I'll put the speaker on. There you go. So it's sampling the watch. It's telling us that these are the specifications internally. Let's turn that speaker off. I would not adjust this watch. It's a 7S26, it's a diver. At the way it is, I wouldn't adjust it, but I'll demonstrate you guys how to put it out of rate, how to make the watch either gain or lose time, and then we can readjust it. So the first thing we need to do is grab our toothpick. As you can see here, this is basically just a toothpick with a bit of sticky tape on the side. I like to hold it. I prefer using a wooden item or a plastic one rather than a metal object that goes in here that could potentially magnetize the watch. So let's give this a go. So what we need to do, if you have a look at this particular lever here, that's the adjustment of the rate. So at the moment, if I was to go clockwise, it will slow the watch down. If I was to go anti-clockwise, it will speed the watch up. See, plus and minus. So I'm either going to tighten the spring up and make it go faster, or loosen the spring up and make it go slower. So what we're going to do, we'll go anti-clockwise. We'll speed this watch up. So if I was to push this just a little bit, just like that, as you can see, instantly we have a result here. 38 seconds, and that's probably going to settle even a little bit higher than that until this movement settles. There you go, 41 seconds, 39. So just by the slightest adjustment there, I've changed now what this characteristics of this watch is doing. Okay, so it's settled in. Let's see if we can bring that back. So the way to bring this back, we can see that it's plus 40 seconds a day it's gaining. Very simple. We want to reduce the speed. So in other words, we want to loosen that spring. We need to go clockwise. Okay, so I'll get the adjustment lever. Let's just have a look here. We place our toothpick on it very gently, and the slightest of movements just there, let's have a look at our results here. It's brought it down to 15, 19 seconds. So we can try that again. Now, bear in mind that you have to be really gentle when you adjust the rate of a watch. Subtle movements will bring a massive difference in results here. Just the slightest of movement. That's why if you don't have a time grapher and you try to do this at home, you're basically working blind. You don't know what you're going to be doing. You're going to have to do trial and error. Do it once, put the watch on, wear it for a day, see what it does, try it again, and so forth. But it's a lot easier doing with a time grapher. There are some apps available that you can actually download on your phone and connect your earpiece to the watch. Again, how good they are, I'm not sure. I've never tried them. I've always just used a simple time grapher like this. So we're running at about 6 seconds a day at the moment. So that's healthy. As you can see, it's adjusting in there. Now, if I was to change the test period from 2 seconds to the standard 12 seconds and start it, let's see how this watch settles. So there you go, it's picking it up. 5 seconds a day, 216-degree amplitude with a beat error of 0.2. That's pretty good for a watch like this. So we're gaining 7 seconds. That'll probably come down to a 5 again. There's 8, there you go. So that's not too bad. Now, you need to bear in mind, just getting a watch here and adjusting that to 0 seconds a day, which I can do, this is quite easy, that's not going to give us a fully regulated watch in a cheaper movement. The reason I say that is because there's another factor that comes into play. It's called positional variance. In other words, at the moment, this watch is running flat on its face. Okay, if I was to change the direction of the watch, let's say we were to put it like that, okay, because in everyday usage, I don't just hold my watch like this. I turn it this way, I turn my wrist that way, I do things. The watch is continually moving, and because of that, it's called positional variance. You have a fluctuation in the speed of the watch every time you move your wrist. And as you can see here, plus 11 seconds. Okay, the beat error has changed, the amplitude's lowered down, plus 14 seconds. If I was to put the watch on an angle like this, okay, let's say I've got my hand facing downwards, as I'm walking throughout the day. This is a different angle. What happens to the watch? It's sped up. 33 seconds a day, different amplitude. So, just by getting the watch on its, front like this and adjusting it and saying, oh, look, I've got it as close to 0 as possible, that it's regulated, that necessarily doesn't work for these watches. And the reason I say that, because of positional variance, you have to regulate a cheaper watch like this to your habits. What does that mean? Very simple. The way that you wear a watch will determine how fast and how slow it's running. So let me give you an example. I put my watch on at about 7 o'clock in the morning every day. I wear it, I do my daily routine here and there, and at about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I take my watch off and I do a mental check of the seconds, where it is in comparison with my computer's clock. So I look at my computer's clock and I look at my seconds on my watch and I say, okay, I'm running, let's say hypothetically, 35 seconds fast. So if my watch was running 35 seconds fast, and then I'll do it the next day, again 35 seconds, again the next day 35 seconds, I know that I need to take 35 seconds off my watch. That's a relatively big amount. So what I would do, I would put the watch on the time grapher. Let's say I put it on the time grapher and it said 60 seconds fast. I don't have to take 60 seconds off this watch. I only have to take 35 seconds. If I can reduce that 60 seconds gaining per day down to 25 seconds per day, that's a start. From there, I can now wear the watch the next day, test it out, and if I find that I'm only 3 or 4 seconds off the 0 seconds per day, guess what? I'm close enough. Especially for a cheaper movement, I'm close enough. So as you can see, this is settled, and now it's running at 4 seconds per day. That's pretty good. I wouldn't touch this. I know the characteristics of this watch. It's my son's watch. He wears it, and it pretty much gains about 4 to 5 seconds a day anyway. So it's a pretty regular watch. For a cheaper movement, a robust Seiko, it's doing a great job. I wouldn't bother. The specs say it should be, I think, around about the plus 40 or 45 seconds or minus 40. So that's more than well within spec. So you need to determine for yourself, okay, when you regulate a watch, your habits, especially with cheaper movements, when they have what's called positional variance, you need to take that into consideration. So it's not just about putting it on the time graph and say, hey, let's just get it to 0. It doesn't work that way. It does with chronometers, with certified chronometers. You know, these things are like a Rolex and Omega, they're regulated at sometimes 4, 5, or even 6 positions. So they'll regulate the watch like this, they'll regulate the watch like this, they'll regulate the watch like this, you know, on its an angle like that, and so forth. So that's a different story altogether. You're paying for something like that. You're paying for that service. You're paying for a better movement that's going to keep its specifications of plus or minus 2 seconds a day, regardless of what you do, whether you wear a watch this way, and so forth. Okay, so I hope I could be of help, guys. There was just a simple tutorial on how to regulate a watch. If you really want to do it, just to dabble in it, by all means, try it on a cheaper movement. Enjoy the stuff you have. And look, if you're not already subscribed, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.